Hi everybody, Christian Brindle with Brindle Insurance Services, and it's that time of the year again where we are reaching the Medicare annual election period where all Medicare Advantage plans and Part D prescription drug plans go through a bit of changes for the new year. And in this video today, I'm going to break down for you the change in the coverage gap, the prescription drug levels and stages you go through throughout the course of the year, and what it means for you if you have any kind of substantial prescription drug costs or even if you have a little bit of prescription drug costs. So without further ado, let's kind of jump right into that, okay? So we're talking about the 2024 prescription drug plan changes, okay? So in the Medicare world, historically, you have always had stages that you move through over the course of the year depending on your usage, right? How much you actually use your prescription drug plan. Now, you can get a prescription drug plan in the Medicare world in a multitude of different ways. You might have heard of a term called Medicare Part D. D stands for drugs in the Medicare world. So Medicare Part D simply means Part D prescription drug coverage, pharmaceutical plans, and they all come through insurance companies in one form or another. So if you have a Medigap or a Medicare supplement plan, chances are you have your Part D prescription drug coverage through a Part D plan, a standalone individual prescription plan through an insurance company. If you get a Medicare Advantage plan that goes with your Medicare, typically that Part D prescription drug coverage can be built into that plan. However, they all follow the same Medicare guidelines and the same structure that Medicare has placed for them on what the actual characteristics of the coverage can look like when it comes to Part D prescription drug coverage in the Medicare world, okay? So the best way to think about Medicare prescription drug coverage is you have stages that you pass through throughout the year. And the more you use your plan, the faster you'll go through these stages, and you might even not go through the stages at all if you don't use your prescription drug plan very often, okay? So the first stage that you're going to have to deal with is what's known as the deductible stage. Now, some plans don't even have a deductible. If a plan has a deductible, this is essentially pretty straightforward. That deductible is going to be something that you're responsible for. You're on the hook for having to meet that deductible if the plan has one. And it might only apply to brand name prescriptions. It might apply to all prescriptions. It might not have one whatsoever. If your plan has a deductible, you have to meet that deductible before you move into the next stage. You pay full cost to the prescription that the deductible applies to. But if you have a plan that doesn't carry a deductible of any kind, then you can just completely skip this stage and it doesn't have any relevance for you. The second stage that you're going to be dealing with is what's known as initial coverage. Okay, so with initial coverage, this one is pretty straightforward also. Most Medicare prescription drug plans, whether it be on the Medicare Advantage side or the individual standalone prescription drug plan side, have what's known as tiers. And you have tiers usually 1 through 5. There are some plans that have tier 6, and it's kind of like their own, side tier that they'll put certain prescriptions in certain circumstances. But it's not common that you'll see a tier 6 or anything outside of tiers 1 through 5. So most plans are going to be tiers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Typically in the initial coverage stage, it's pretty straightforward. Your plan is going to have a set copay in most circumstances, and that copay is what you will pay for that prescription. So for example, let's say you have a tier 1 and your copay is $5 for a 30-day supply. You'd pay the $5, the insurance company would pay the rest regardless of what the cost is, and that's all. Pretty self-explanatory. Now, in years past, a majority of plans have had set dollar amounts on tiers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Tiers 1 and 2 were somewhere between $0 to $10. Tiers 3 and 4, which are your brand name prescription tiers, were $45, tier 4 being in the ballpark of $95. What we're seeing due to the Inflation Reduction Act, where they're actually going to be adding a $2,000 cap, a maximum out-of-pocket limit on all Medicare prescription drug plans, is insurance companies kind of preparing for that in 2025 by changing the coverage structure on your brand name prescriptions. Now, not all plans are doing this, not all insurance companies are doing this, but several are, and it's something that you want to be on the lookout for this open season, okay? So instead of a tier 3 maybe being a $45 copay or a $47 copay or a $48 copay, a set dollar amount for a 30-day supply, you are seeing some companies have a 20% coinsurance a 25% coinsurance, a 30% coinsurance, a 35% coinsurance, which means it's a higher out-of-pocket potential cost for you. So let's kind of use this as a bit of an example, okay? Let's say you have a prescription that is $500 a month retail value, and that prescription is a brand name. Let's say we put it in the tier 3 category. Well, previously, the way that plan was structured, if your plan had a set dollar amount, which most did prior to this year, and let's say your set dollar amount copay is a $45 copay flat, right? Well, if your plan changed to a 25% copay, let's say, you would go from paying $45. So at $125 copay in that scenario, your cost in this stage will rise. That is all thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act that our government has decided to pass involving Medicare prescription drug coverage, okay? So the initial drug coverage stage, that's the second stage you're going to go through. A majority of people actually never get out of this stage. Now there's a third stage that many of you might be aware of, and that is known as the donut hole, also known as the coverage gap. So the donut hole, also known as the coverage gap, is something that's been in play for a very long time. It's a government-mandated program that all insurance companies have to follow. And so kind of what we're seeing with the donut hole, also known as the coverage gap, is they track the total cost of your prescriptions over the course of the year. So in that scenario I gave earlier, where let's say your prescription as a tier 3, it's $500 retail value, and your copay was $125 for that, they track the total cost of the medication. So if it's a $500 prescription, they take what the insurance company pays combined with what you pay as the copay, and they keep track of that number, and that's what kind of dictates whether you get into the coverage gap or not. So they track that number until it reaches $5,030 in 2024, and once it does, if it does, you enter this third stage, and this infamous stage at that, called the Medicare coverage gap, also known by some as the donut hole. Now, when you're in the donut hole or the coverage gap, you end up paying 25% of the retail cost of all of your prescriptions while you're in that stage. It's very common for us to see that people's prescription drug costs should balloon up pretty extraordinary during the coverage gap stage if they enter it. We hear from people all the time, and maybe you might have experienced this, to where your prescription drug cost fluctuates over the course of the year. It's not consistent. It doesn't stay in one place. It gets higher in the middle of the year, the end of the year, after the first quarter, depending on your usage. And you've never understood why. This would be why right here, the donut hole, also known as the coverage gap. Now, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Once your drug costs have reached $8,000 over the course of the year, you enter the final stage known as catastrophic coverage. Now, catastrophic coverage is an $8,000 total. Once you reach it, you then pay $0 for your prescription drug costs. You can almost think of this as a maximum out-of-pocket limit. Previously, in years past, when you reach the catastrophic coverage limit, what we typically found is you end up paying it 5%, or if not a little bit under, for your prescription drugs, even in catastrophic coverage. So there was no limit, no stop to what you would be charged over the course of the year. Even though it got better in catastrophic coverage, even though the percentage of what you were paying went down significantly from when you were in the donut hole, you still were having to pay something, and it just never stopped. Now, with the catastrophic coverage changes for 2024, you can expect to pay $0 in this final stage once your drug costs reach $8,000 per year, okay? Now, there are some exceptions to this. If you take some insulins, the Medicare program has passed the Insulin Senior Savings Program in the last couple of years that's evolved every single year. The way it works currently is if you take any very well-known insulin brand, right? And they're a tier 3, they're a tier 4. Lantus is a good example of this. Humalog, Novolog, Trigeo, different kinds of very well-known insulin brands. As long as it's covered by your insurance company, as long as it's in their formulary, your insulin costs will end up being capped at a $35 copay for a 30-day supply, regardless of what stage you're in. So let's say you're on a prescription drug plan that has a $500 yearly prescription drug deductible that you have to meet before you can obtain any coverage for some expensive prescriptions. it would be capped at $35 for your insulins, whether you've met the deductible or not. If you get into the coverage gap or the donut hole and you're paying 25%, your insulin costs are capped at $35 for a 30-day supply. So that's a good program that is helping a lot of folks that have diabetes that are taking insulins. And those insulin costs previously, before that program passed, was one of the highest costs consistently we were seeing when somebody was on a prescription drug plan and they were taking insulin on a routine basis, okay? So this is all changing in preparation of the Inflation Reduction Act kicking in 2025 with their maximum out-of-pocket cap limit. There are some things that kicked in 2023 on the Inflation Reduction Act. There are some things that are kicking in 2024, but the big one is that $2,000 cap. And the insurance companies are trying to brace for it because they're used to never having a maximum out-of-pocket cap. Now they're going to in the coming years. So we're going to see the prescription drug coverage change quite a bit. This is the version of it we're going to have for 2024. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, during this annual election period for Medicare, do us a favor, help us help more people. We can't do it without your help. Make sure to smash the like button for this YouTube algorithm. Hit that little check mark, that little thumbs up button, and it will help more people just like you find this video easier on the YouTube platform. Comment your thoughts down below. What do you think about these changes going into 2024? Make sure to subscribe for more future Medicare content. If you would like help on your Medicare plan this annual election period, my organization, Brindle Insurance Services, is licensed in over 40 states. We do business nationally, and we would love the opportunity to help you with your plan. We're an independent insurance brokerage, meaning we work with a multitude of different insurance companies that can provide you with a multitude of different kinds of options. We can search through options and try to help you find the very strongest plan for your specific needs and your preferences. I'm obligated to also tell you that we do not carry every single Medicare plan in your area. For a full list of plans, please call 1-800-MEDICARE or contact your local SHIP department for a full list of plans. But if you'd like to work with our organization, our contact information can be found down in the description of this video. Call our office today. Let us help you, and we have no cost, no obligation for our services. It's complimentary. We hope this video was helpful, and we'll see you next time with more future Medicare information. Thanks, everybody.